Now, the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's coalition has survived an opposition-backed effort to dissolve parliament as lawmakers rejected a bill that could have paved the way for snap elections. 61 voted against, 53 in favour. The opposition had introduced that bill, hoping to force elections with the help of ultra-Orthodox parties angry at Netanyahu over the contentious issue of conscription for deeply religious Jews. The ultra-Orthodox parties, though, still propping up Netanyahu's government after earlier threatening to back the motion. It comes as criticism of the government of Benjamin Netanyahu's war in Gaza is mounting. There are charges of genocide and war crimes coming from foreign leaders and also from several former Israeli prime ministers. Opinion polls in Israel itself also bad for Netanyahu. Well, Philip Turle, international affairs editor, is with me here on set. Philip, it appears that every way Netanyahu looks, there appears to be trouble.
Well, he's got a slight reprieve here with this vote overnight, which I think will come as a relief to the Israeli prime minister because he could have faced early elections, and that meant pretty much that he would lose. So he now has another breathing period, if you like, but it was only a very small victory for him, 61 votes against 53 in favour. So just by the skin of his teeth, he's pulled through it, and his coalition is weakened as a result of that vote. But it was basically the Orthodox Jews who have agreed to sanctions being lifted against deserters not going into the army or refusers to take part in army activities, which is something that they were asking for. So Benjamin Netanyahu, with some good news today, but when you look at the general situation in Israel, it's not looking good for him right now. If you look at the situation in the war in Gaza, for example, 55,223 Palestinians dead since the start of the hostilities on the 7th of October, 80% are civilian victims and 2.1 million people facing famine. That's according to figures put forward by the UNHCR and other humanitarian groups. 90% of buildings in the Gaza Strip are said to have been reduced to rubble or really destroyed. So the bottom line here is that there are growing calls for Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza. Netanyahu doesn't show any signs of that. We're still a long way off from a ceasefire agreement. And he is being accused by many in Israel of wanting to prolong the war to keep his own position safe in power as prime minister, because if he falls from grace as prime minister, is out of office, he then faces corruption charges. And that pressure has grown in recent weeks as a result of the hostage situation. And it's putting Benjamin Netanyahu under increased pressure, not only from the population in Israel who are not agreeing with what he's doing, but also from his own government and from his own backers on the far right in Israel.
I mentioned briefly at the top there opinion polls. What are they actually showing in Israel?
Well, they're not good. I mean, they're not good news. And if you look at just one of them that I pulled out for you, which was organised by the group Statista, they say that only 41% of Israelis have a positive opinion of Benjamin Netanyahu, with 58% saying that they don't agree with the way he's handling the war in Gaza. As I said, the hostages is really the key demand here. They should be liberated. Many saying this should have happened months ago, even a year ago. Why are so many hostages still being held in the Gaza Strip? 55 hostages are said to be in there right now, with at least 32 of those hostages reported to be killed out of 148 who were originally captured on the 7th of October. And another charge which has been raised against Benjamin Netanyahu, not only from within Israel, but from outside, from humanitarian organizations and from the United Nations Special Committee and Amnesty International, saying that a genocide is taking place in the Gaza Strip because of the large-scale killing, hunger being used as a weapon in war, the destruction of the civilian infrastructure, and attacks on healthcare workers. So all of these charges are mounting up against Benjamin Netanyahu, and he is finding that he is being not only criticised at home, but also by being criticised overseas.
And all that as well as Donald Trump has snubbed Benjamin Netanyahu, moving ahead with those, as we've been talking about at the top of the programme, those nuclear talks with Iran.
Well, there are a couple of issues this week which are interesting to pinpoint. One of them is, of course, the Iranian Iranian nuclear issue. And the Israelis have always favored launching attacks against Iran, saying there's a window of opportunity now because Hezbollah has been weakened, Hamas is also seriously weakened, the Houthi rebels as well. These are three of Iran's proxies, so it's time now for us to try to hammer Iran itself and launch attacks against those nuclear installations. The Iranians are saying that that is something that they don't want, and they want to continue these negotiations with the United States. We have another round coming up on Sunday, but it depends how these negotiations turn out. As you were saying before, the Americans are saying that they're putting out some of their personnel from Iraq and other sensitive areas in the Middle East because they fear that these talks may go nowhere. But is that a negotiating tactic to put more pressure on the Iranians? But one thing is for sure, Donald Trump and Benjamin Netanyahu don't see eye to eye right now about what the right move forward is. And one other issue, which is also interesting to bring up right now, is the conference next week, the UN conference, to discuss a two-state solution to the Middle East. And for the first time, the Trump administration is putting pressure on those countries that are going to take part in these talks, most notably France, Great Britain and Canada, saying that you must not recognize a two-state solution because that would be counterproductive to try to work out a solution to the war in Gaza, and that the United States, I'll quote, "you'll be seen as acting in opposition to US foreign policy interests and could face diplomatic consequences." Well, the reaction from that from those countries, and especially from France, is that that is a bullying technique and they will not stand for it. But pressure also not to accept this two-state solution in Israel. So that could pander to what Benjamin Netanyahu and above all his far-right coalition are looking to try to achieve.